It's funny how life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Jenna's 28th birthday was supposed to be the perfect celebration, a night where I could show her just how much she meant to me. I had spent weeks planning every detail: the Italian restaurant she loved, the custom lavender and daisy cake that matched her favorite flowers, and even the diamond bracelet she'd been eyeing for months. It wasn't cheap, but I figured it was worth it. After all, you only turn 28 once, right? The evening started off beautifully. Laughter filled the air, glasses clinked in toast after toast, and Jenna seemed genuinely happy. But as fate would have it, perfection is an illusion, and reality came crashing down faster than I ever imagined. Somewhere between dinner and dessert, something felt off. At first, I brushed it aside, thinking maybe she'd stepped out to take a call or freshen up. But when 15 minutes turned into 20, and then 30, my gut began to twist with unease. I scanned the room, asked a few guests if they'd seen her, but no one knew where she was. My heart pounded as I walked through the restaurant, checking every corner: the bar area, the entrance, even the restrooms. That's when I remembered the back hallway near the storage closet. Maybe she needed some air, I thought, trying to calm myself. But deep down, I already knew something was terribly wrong. As I approached the coat closet at the end of the hall, I heard muffled voices, low, hurried whispers that sent chills down my spine. My stomach dropped like a stone. The door wasn't fully shut, and through the crack, I caught the faint glow of a phone screen. For a split second, my brain screamed at me to turn around, to walk away and pretend I hadn't seen anything. But curiosity, or perhaps anger, got the better of me. I pushed the door open, and there they were, Jenna and Tyler, tangled together like two thieves caught red-handed. Her hands were buried in his hair, his arms wrapped possessively around her waist. Their faces froze in shock, eyes wide with guilt and fear. "What the hell is this?" I shouted, my voice shaking with rage. Before I could process what I was seeing, Tyler lunged toward me, trying to shove me back. We collided violently, knocking over the coat rack behind us. Coats tumbled to the floor in a chaotic heap, but neither of us cared. Adrenaline surged through my veins as I grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall. "How dare you!" I yelled, my vision clouded by fury. Jenna scrambled to intervene, her panicked movements sending her phone flying from her hand. It hit the ground with a sickening crack, the screen shattering into pieces. She stared at it in horror, as if the broken device symbolized the shattered trust between us. "It's not what it looks like," Jenna pleaded, tears streaming down her face. But her words were hollow, meaningless. How could she stand there and lie to my face after what I'd just witnessed? Tyler, still pinned against the wall, stammered some pathetic excuse about how it just happened, as if that made it okay, as if betrayal could ever be justified. I let go of him in disgust, turning my full attention to Jenna. "Don't bother coming home tonight," I said, my voice cold and final. She opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. "We're done." Walking out of that closet felt like stepping out of a nightmare, but the real nightmare was just beginning. Every step I took away from them felt heavier than the last, each footfall echoing the weight of betrayal. By the time I reached my car, my hands were trembling so badly I could barely fit the key into the ignition. I drove aimlessly, replaying the scene in my mind over and over again. How had it come to this? How could the woman I loved, the woman I'd built a life with, betray me so cruelly, and with my own cousin, no less? Tyler, the guy who always bragged about being smooth but never amounted to anything. The irony was almost too much to bear. The aftermath of that fateful birthday night was nothing short of a nightmare, a slow-burning, suffocating nightmare that refused to let me wake up. Jenna's betrayal had left me reeling, but what came next was even worse. It wasn't enough for her to destroy our marriage. She wanted to punish me further by dragging me into a legal battle I never asked for. Within days of moving out, she hired an expensive lawyer, someone known for taking on high-profile cases and charging astronomical fees. The irony, she expected me to foot the bill for her legal expenses. Apparently, in Jenna's twisted logic, cheating on your spouse entitled you to financial support afterward. Her lawyer sent over a letter demanding alimony, claiming that Jenna had sacrificed during our marriage and needed assistance to get back on her feet. Sacrificed? My blood boiled at the very word. What exactly had she sacrificed? Her dignity when she kissed Tyler in that coat closet. Her integrity when she tried to keep the diamond bracelet and car I'd bought her. Or perhaps her sanity when she decided it was okay to betray me with my own cousin. The audacity was staggering. I immediately forwarded the letter to my attorney, who assured me we had a strong case against her. Still, the thought of Jenna thinking she could manipulate the system and me made my skin crawl. Meanwhile, Tyler wasn't content to sit idly by while his new flame played courtroom games. No, he took matters into his own hands, or rather, his phone. For weeks, my phone buzzed incessantly with calls and texts from unknown numbers. At first, I ignored them, assuming they were spam or telemarketers. But then the messages became more personal, more menacing. One evening, as I sat on my couch trying to unwind after a long day, my phone lit up with a text. "You think you're so smart. Taking back the car and the bracelet. You'll regret messing with us." It didn't take a genius to figure out who was behind it. Tyler's juvenile threats escalated quickly. He called late at night, his voice slurred with alcohol, hurling insults and accusations. "You're pathetic," he sneered one night. "Jenna deserves better than you, always has. You're just some loser who can't handle losing." Each call felt like a punch to the gut, not because his words held any truth, but because of the sheer gall of the man. Here was someone who had betrayed family loyalty, stolen my wife, and now had the nerve to act like the victim. One particularly harrowing incident stands out. I was driving home from work when my phone rang. Seeing an unfamiliar number, I almost didn't answer. Something told me to pick up anyway. Big mistake. Tyler's voice came through loud and clear, laced with venom. "You ruined everything," he spat. "Jenna's miserable because of you. If anything happens to her, it's on you." His tone sent chills down my spine. Was he threatening me, or worse, Jenna? I couldn't tell if he was bluffing or genuinely unhinged. Either way, I ended the call abruptly and blocked the number, though I knew it wouldn't stop him. Sure enough, within hours, another unknown number popped up. This time, the message was chillingly simple: "Watch your back." By this point, I was exhausted not just emotionally, but physically. Sleep eluded me, and paranoia crept in. Every creak of the floorboards at night made me jump. Every shadow outside my window seemed suspicious. I started carrying pepper spray in my bag, something I'd never done before. The once familiar streets of my neighborhood now felt hostile, as if danger lurked around every corner. Tyler's relentless harassment was wearing me down, and I hated myself for letting him have that power over me. To make matters worse, Jenna joined forces with Tyler in their campaign of intimidation. Through mutual friends, she spread lies about how I was unstable and obsessed with ruining her life. She claimed I'd stolen the car and bracelet out of spite, conveniently omitting the fact that both items were legally mine. Her attempts to paint herself as the victim infuriated me, but they also fueled my resolve. I refused to let them win, not in court, not in public perception, and certainly not in my mind. I began documenting everything, every call, every text, every interaction with either of them. Screenshots, timestamps, voice memos. I kept meticulous records, knowing they would be crucial in proving my side of the story. My attorney advised me to file for a restraining order against Tyler, given the escalating nature of his threats. While part of me hesitated, it felt too extreme. To final, the other part knew it was necessary. If Tyler crossed the line, there would be no turning back, and deep down, I feared he might. As the days turned into weeks, the tension between us reached a boiling point. Jenna's legal team continued to push forward with their baseless claims, filing motions and sending letters that only served to drag out the process. Meanwhile, Tyler's harassment grew bolder. One afternoon, as I left the gym, I spotted him across the parking lot, leaning against a beat-up sedan. Our eyes met briefly before he smirked and gave a mock salute. It was a silent taunt, a reminder that he was watching, waiting. I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to confront him. Instead, I got into my truck and drove away, adrenaline coursing through my veins. You'd think that after everything Jenna and Tyler had done, my family would have stood by me. After all, they were the ones who taught me about loyalty, integrity, and standing up for what's right. But apparently, those lessons didn't apply when it came to their precious family unity. 2 days after I kicked Jenna out of the house, my mom called. Her tone was clipped, serious like she was preparing for battle. "We need to talk," she said, her voice leaving no room for argument. I assumed it would be a chance for them to check on me, maybe even rip Tyler a new one for betraying me so callously. Boy, was I wrong. When I arrived at my parents' house, the atmosphere was suffocating. My dad sat at the dining table, arms crossed like some kind of judge ready to pass sentence. My mom paced back and forth, muttering under her breath as if rehearsing a speech. The moment I walked in, I knew this wasn't going to go well. "Sit down," my dad barked, motioning to the chair across from him. "No, hey, how are you holding up? We're sorry about what happened." "Nope. Straight to business. We need to talk about Jenna and Tyler," my mom began, her voice trembling with forced calmness. My stomach churned. For a split second, I thought they might finally acknowledge the gravity of what had happened, that Jenna had betrayed me with my own cousin, someone who was supposed to be family. But instead, what came next made me want to flip the table. "Look, what happened wasn't ideal," she said, as if Jenna's infidelity was equivalent to spilling a drink at dinner. "But these things happen. These things happen," I repeated, my voice rising louder than I intended. "She cheated on me with Tyler, in case you forgot." My dad held up his hand like he was calling a timeout in a basketball game. "Son, we're not saying it's okay," he interjected, his tone patronizing. "But we need to be realistic. If Jenna and Tyler have feelings for each other, you can't force them to stay apart." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I laughed not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. "Are you seriously trying to justify this? They were making out in a closet at her birthday party. She's my wife, Tyler's my cousin. What part of this is okay?" "Listen," my mom said, sitting down beside me as if proximity would somehow soften the blow of her words. "Nobody's saying it's okay. But if they have something real." I interrupted, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "They've been sneaking around behind my back for God knows how long. That's not real. That's disgusting." By this point, my blood was boiling. I looked at my dad, hoping for some backup, but he just sighed and said, "You need to move on." "Holding on to anger won't help anyone. Move on," I snapped, standing up. "So, I'm just supposed to pretend none of this happened? Let Jenna and Tyler skip off into the sunset while I sit here and smile about it?" "We're not taking sides," my mom said quickly, though her words rang hollow. "We just think it's better for everyone if we handle this calmly." "Calmly?" I laughed bitterly. "Fine, here's me being calm. I'm done with both of them. And if you want to keep making excuses for them, then I'm done with you too." My mom looked hurt, but I didn't care. I stormed out, slamming the door behind me. On the drive home, I replayed the conversation in my head over and over again. How could they be so blind? How could they dismiss my pain like it was nothing more than an inconvenience? It was infuriating, but the worst part, they weren't done yet. A few days later, my dad texted me, "Are you ready to talk like adults?" I ignored it. When that didn't work, they escalated. Without warning, they cut off all financial support money they'd been giving me for years to help with bills and unexpected expenses. It was a calculated move, designed to pressure me into submission. They thought I'd buckle under the weight of their disapproval and guilt, but they underestimated me. I stopped attending Sunday dinners. I ignored their calls. I refused to explain myself further. If they couldn't see how wrong they were, then that was on them. It was funny, really, how quickly people show their true colors when things go south. I thought my parents would be the first to stand by me, but instead, they chose to prioritize the very people who had stabbed me in the back. When I took back the car, I thought it would be a straightforward process, just reclaim what was rightfully mine and move on. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them, and this time, Tyler decided to play dirty. After retrieving the keys from the dealership, I drove the car home, feeling a mix of satisfaction and vindication. Every mile I covered in that sleek red coupe felt like a victory lap against Jenna and Tyler's audacity. However, my triumph was short-lived. The next morning, as I prepared to leave for work, something felt off. The steering wheel seemed stiffer than usual, and when I pressed the brake pedal, it sank lower than it should have. My stomach churned with unease. I popped the hood and inspected the engine compartment, but everything looked normal at first glance. Still, my instinct screamed that something wasn't right. So, I called Eric, the buddy who worked at the dealership, and asked him to take a closer look. Eric arrived within an hour, his face grim as he examined the vehicle. "Dude," he said, shaking his head, "someone messed with your brakes." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Messed with? No, this wasn't just negligence. It was sabotage. Someone had deliberately tampered with the brake lines, loosening connections and damaging critical components. If I hadn't noticed before driving further, the consequences could have been catastrophic: a crash, injury, or worse. The realization sent chills down my spine. Who else could it be but Tyler? He must have done it out of spite after I reclaimed the car, thinking he could scare me into giving it back or punish me for taking it away. I clenched my fists, anger bubbling inside me. This wasn't just about the car anymore, it was personal. Tyler wasn't just trying to inconvenience me, he was putting my life in danger. And for what? To prove some twisted sense of dominance. It made me sick. I immediately filed a police report, detailing everything: how I discovered the damage, my suspicions about Tyler's involvement, and even screenshots of his threatening voicemails. They promised to investigate, but deep down, I knew justice wouldn't come quickly. Still, documenting the incident gave me peace of mind. It was evidence that Tyler wasn't just reckless, he was dangerous. But the drama didn't stop there. A few days later, I went to sell the diamond bracelet I'd retrieved from Jenna at the jewelry store. Selling it wasn't just about recouping its value. It was symbolic, a final act of reclaiming control over my life. When the jeweler appraised it, however, his expression darkened. "There are scratches here," he said, pointing to faint but deliberate marks along the surface of the diamonds. Scratches. My blood boiled. There was no way those were accidental. Someone had intentionally damaged it, and there was only one person who could have done it: Jenna. She must have thought she could ruin the bracelet's worth, making it harder for me to sell or forcing me to let her keep it. Her entitlement knew no bounds. Even after betraying me, she still believed she deserved the things I'd given her. The nerve of it all left me seething. I snapped a photo of the damaged bracelet and texted it to Jenna without comment. Within minutes, she replied, her tone defensive. "You ruined our marriage, and now you're destroying everything we had." Her audacity astounded me. Ruined our marriage. She had single-handedly destroyed it the moment she kissed Tyler in that coat closet, destroying everything we had. The only thing she cared about was material possessions, not the years we spent together, not the trust I placed in her, but the shiny objects I bought her. I responded coldly, "Keep telling yourself that, Jenna. Maybe someday you'll believe it." Despite the damage, the jeweler offered me a fair price for the bracelet. As I walked out of the shop with cash in hand, I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Jenna had tried so hard to cling to the remnants of her betrayal: the car, the bracelet, but karma kept slapping her in the face. Every attempt to manipulate or retaliate only dug her deeper into her own mess. Meanwhile, I felt lighter, freer. Each step forward was another reminder that I wasn't going to let their actions define me. If karma had a sense of humor, it was laughing hysterically at Tyler and Jenna by this point. Their reckless decisions were catching up with them in ways neither of them could have anticipated, and honestly, they deserved every bit of it. The fallout from Tyler's arrest for shoplifting spiraled into something far more chaotic than anyone expected. What started as a petty theft attempt turned into an outright brawl when Tyler lost his temper after being caught red-handed. According to Emma, who heard the story secondhand through mutual acquaintances. Tyler didn't go quietly once the store employees confronted him. When the security guard tried to restrain him, Tyler lashed out, throwing punches like some amateur street fighter. He actually punched the guy, Emma told me over the phone, barely able to contain her laughter. Full-on swung and hit the poor security guard right in the jaw. The irony wasn't lost on me. Tyler, the so-called smooth operator who thought he could charm his way out of anything, ended up looking like a complete idiot. Not only did he get arrested for stealing, but now he also faced charges for assault. His mugshot made its way around social media within hours, courtesy of someone at the police station who clearly understood the value of public humiliation. It showed Tyler scowling, his hair disheveled, and what looked suspiciously like a bruise forming under his left eye. Karma really does love poetic justice. Meanwhile, Jenna's life was unraveling just as spectacularly. Between dealing with Tyler's legal troubles and trying to salvage their crumbling relationship, she neglected everything else, including her job. Her boss at the jewelry store had already been lenient about her frequent absences during the initial drama, but patience has limits. When Jenna missed yet another shift because she was stuck at the courthouse waiting for Tyler's arraignment, her boss finally snapped. "You're fired," he reportedly said, according to one of her co-workers who gleefully relayed the news to me. "We can't keep covering for you while you sort out your personal mess." The co-worker added that Jenna burst into tears right there in the middle of the store, pleading for another chance. But even her theatrics couldn't save her this time. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, leaving everyone to whisper about how far she'd fallen since the days when she strutted around flaunting my gifts. Losing her job wasn't just a financial blow, it was a massive blow to her ego. For years, Jenna prided herself on maintaining appearances, pretending she had it all together. Now, stripped of the car, the bracelet, and any semblance of dignity, she was exposed for what she truly was, someone willing to betray others but incapable of facing the consequences of her actions. To make matters worse, Jenna's desperation grew with each passing day. With no income and mounting legal fees from Tyler's case, they were drowning in debt. Every call she made to family members begging for money went unanswered or worse, met with thinly veiled disdain. My parents, who once bent over backward to defend her, finally drew the line. "Even Mom and Dad are done enabling her," Emma informed me, sounding almost giddy. Dad told her flat out that she needs to figure things out on her own. Hearing that brought me a twisted sense of satisfaction. After everything Jenna put me through, watching her scramble for scraps must have been karmic payback. But the real kicker came when Tyler skipped town shortly after posting bail. Rumor had it he fled to avoid showing up for court, leaving Jenna high and dry. No explanation, no apology, just gone. I imagined her sitting alone in their dingy apartment, staring at the empty space where Tyler used to be, realizing too late that hitching her wagon to him was the worst mistake of her life. The universe had delivered its final verdict. Tyler was nothing more than a cowardly opportunist, and Jenna was collateral damage in his selfish pursuit of self-preservation. If I thought the drama with Jenna and Tyler had reached its peak after the shoplifting incident and their financial meltdown, I was dead wrong. Just when I thought I could finally breathe easy, they decided to escalate things in a way that felt like something out of a soap opera. It started with a call from my lawyer one morning, a call that made me question whether Karma had taken a coffee break or if Jenna had simply gone full supervillain mode. "You're not going to like this," he began, his tone grim enough to make my stomach churn. "Jenna's lawyer just filed a claim alleging forgery on your part." Forgery? My jaw nearly hit the floor. How could Jenna possibly accuse me of forging documents? Then it clicked, this wasn't about truth. It was about desperation. With her alimony case crumbling into dust, she needed a new angle to drag me back into the mud. According to her fabricated story, I had allegedly forged her signature on several joint accounts we'd opened during our marriage. The audacity of it all was staggering. She was trying to paint herself as the victim once again, conveniently ignoring the fact that she'd betrayed me with my own cousin. But wait, it got worse. A few days later, Emma called me, barely able to contain her laughter. "You won't believe this," she said, her voice trembling with amusement. Jenna and Tyler hired a private investigator. At first, I thought she was joking. What exactly did they hope to uncover? That I secretly moonlighted as a cat burglar? But no, they were serious. Their sleazy pie had been snooping around, asking mutual acquaintances invasive questions about my personal life. Apparently, Jenna believed that if she could find some skeleton in my closet, any tiny flaw or mistake, they could use it to discredit me in court. The irony was almost poetic. Here I was, living my best life post-divorce, while they were reduced to scraping the bottom of the barrel for ammunition. Every move they made reeked of desperation. They even tried to dig up dirt on my work history, claiming I must have embezzled funds or fudged numbers at my job. When nothing turned up because, surprise, I'm not a criminal, they shifted focus to my social circle. One of my old college friends received a strange phone call asking if I'd ever cheated on exams or lied about community service hours. Yes, really. Cheating on exams. This wasn't high school anymore. It was absurd. Despite the ridiculousness of their tactics, it still infuriated me. Did they think hiring some two-bit detective would magically erase the mountain of evidence against them? Every lie they told only dug their hole deeper. Meanwhile, my lawyer assured me that their claims held no water legally. Forging signatures, please. We had bank records, emails, and witnesses proving otherwise. And as for their attempts to tarnish my reputation, well, let's just say karma works in mysterious ways. One particularly satisfying moment came when the pie showed up at my workplace unannounced. He strutted in like he owned the place, flashing his badge and demanding answers from my colleagues. And fortunately for him, my boss happened to overhear the commotion and stepped in. Let's just say my boss doesn't take kindly to strangers harassing employees. Within minutes, security escorted the pie out of the building, leaving him red-faced and empty-handed. I couldn't help but laugh when Emma texted me photos of the guy sulking in the parking lot afterward. Still, the whole ordeal left a bitter taste in my mouth. It wasn't so much about what they were accusing me of, it was the sheer gall of it. After everything they'd done, cheating, stealing, lying, they had the nerve to play the victim card. It was exhausting, but it also fueled my determination. If they wanted a fight, I'd give them one. I spent hours combing through every document, email, and receipt related to our marriage. I gathered statements from friends who'd witnessed Jenna and Tyler sneaking around together. I even tracked down the waitress from the birthday dinner who confirmed seeing them cozying up in the coat closet. By the time I handed everything over to my lawyer, there wasn't a single stone left unturned. Their legal team continued throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping something would stick. But each attempt fell flat. The judge dismissed the forgery allegations outright, citing lack of evidence. As for the PI's report, it amounted to nothing more than hearsay and baseless speculation. In the end, their efforts only highlighted their own incompetence. Watching them scramble to justify their actions was almost comical if it weren't so infuriating. By the time the dust settled, I realized something important. People like Jenna and Tyler will always try to manipulate situations to their advantage. They'll twist facts, exploit loopholes, and stoop to unimaginable lows to save face. But no amount of scheming can change the truth. And sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't vengeance, it's living your life unapologetically while they drown in the chaos they created. If you thought Tyler and Jenna's downward spiral couldn't get any worse, buckle up because karma wasn't done with them yet. Just when it seemed like they'd hit rock bottom, another bombshell dropped that sent shockwaves through what was left of their crumbling relationship. It started with a phone call from Emma one evening. Her voice was trembling, not with laughter this time, but with disbelief. "You're not going to believe this," she began, her tone laced with both amusement and pity. "Tyler just accused Jenna of cheating on him." Cheating on him? The irony was so thick I almost choked on my coffee. After everything Tyler had done, stealing, lying, betraying family loyalty, he had the audacity to play the victim card again. According to Emma, he'd confronted Jenna during one of their increasingly frequent arguments, accusing her of seeing someone else behind his back. And here's the kicker. He claimed he had proof, a series of texts between Jenna and some guy named Chris who worked at her new job. Apparently, Chris had been helping her navigate the chaos of her life post-scandal, and somewhere along the way, things had turned flirtatious, or so Tyler alleged. Jenna denied it. Of course, she always denied everything. But by then, no one believed her anymore, not even my parents, who had once bent over backward to defend her. When word got out about Tyler's accusations, the family erupted into chaos. My mom called me later that night, her voice unusually quiet. "We think Tyler might be telling the truth," she admitted reluctantly. "Jenna's been acting strange lately. She barely talks to anyone, and when she does, she seems distant." For the first time, I heard regret in her voice. Regret for defending Jenna all those months ago, for enabling her toxic behavior, for failing to see the truth until it was too late. But the real fallout came days later, when Jenna finally cracked under the pressure. Between Tyler's accusations, their financial ruin, and the endless string of humiliations, she reached her breaking point. One morning, Emma texted me a photo of Jenna sitting alone on a park bench, staring blankly into space. Her hair was unkempt, her clothes disheveled, and her face devoid of makeup, a far cry from the polished woman I once knew. "She hasn't left the house in days," Emma wrote. "Mom says she won't answer calls or texts. They're worried she might do something drastic." Drastic. Knowing Jenna, she probably meant overdramatic, but still, the image haunted me. Not because I felt sorry for her, but because it was a stark reminder of how quickly life can unravel when you build it on lies. By the end of the week, rumors spread that Jenna had checked herself into a psychiatric facility after suffering a severe depressive episode. Whether it was genuine mental health struggles or just another ploy for attention, no one could say for sure. Either way, it marked the final chapter in her descent from grace. Meanwhile, Tyler didn't stick around to pick up the pieces. In true cowardly fashion, he disappeared shortly after making his explosive accusations, leaving Jenna to face the wreckage of her life alone. No goodbye, no apology, just gone. Again, this time, though, no one came running to bail him out. Even my parents, who had once defended him relentlessly, were done. "He's poison," Dad told Emma during one of their rare conversations. "And we're cutting ties with anyone who enables him." As for me, vindication arrived in an unexpected form, a public apology from my parents. During Sunday dinner tradition I'd resumed attending after months of estrangement, my mom stood up, cleared her throat, and addressed the room. "We owe you an apology," she said, looking directly at me. Her voice wavered, but there was no mistaking the sincerity in her words. "We were wrong to side with Jenna and Tyler. We let our fear of conflict blind us to the truth, and in doing so, we hurt you. For that, we're truly sorry." The room fell silent as everyone processed her words. Even my dad nodded in agreement, adding, "You handled everything with more dignity than we deserved. We're proud of you, son." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to lash out, to remind them of every painful moment they'd caused, but instead, I simply nodded. "Thank you," I said quietly. "It means a lot." That night, as I drove home in my new truck, the one I'd bought after selling the red coupe, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't known I needed. Karma had delivered its final verdict. Tyler and Jenna were broken, humiliated, and utterly alone. Meanwhile, I was free from their toxicity, free from the weight of betrayal, and free to rebuild my life on my own terms. Victory never tasted so sweet.